The Roman Empire was not a mere nation, it was a mathematical certainty. In the 1st century, the Roman legion was the most sophisticated engine of destruction the world had ever seen. They didn't just win battles, they erased enemies from the map with industrial efficiency. But in the year 9 AD, 3 elite legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, marched into the dark, rain-soaked shadows of the Teutoburg Forest and simply vanished. They didn't fall to a superior empire, they fell to a massive blunder. Imagine the shock of a superpower realizing that its invincible shield had been shattered in a matter of hours by barbarians they had long dismissed as inferior. This isn't just a story of swords and shields. It is a clinical study of how arrogance, misplaced trust, and a total failure to adapt can bring the greatest empire on earth to its knees. Today, we go beyond the armor to understand the strategic blunder that changed the course of Western history forever. At the heart of this catastrophe was one man, Publius Quinctilius Varus. Varus was not a frontline warrior, he was a lawyer, a bureaucrat, a man of the halls of power. To Varus, the Germanic tribes were already conquered subjects, not a military threat. He viewed the vast, wild forests of Germania not as a battlefield, but as a province that just needed proper taxation. This was his first and most fatal strategic blunder. He applied the logic of the courtroom to the reality of the frontier. He moved his army as if he were on a parade march through the streets of Rome, burdened by thousands of civilians, heavy wagons, and luxury goods. He treated a war zone like a construction site, blinded by a victory disease that convinced him the barbarians were too disorganized to ever strike back. But Varus wasn't just fighting the forest, he was being led by the hand into a grave. His most trusted advisor was Arminius, a Germanic chieftain's son who had been raised in Rome, granted citizenship, and trained in Roman tactics. Arminius was the ultimate insider. He knew the Roman psyche better than they knew themselves. He saw the Roman reliance on rigid formation and turned it into a weakness. While Varus toasted to Roman supremacy, Arminius was whispering lies, leading the legions away from the open plains and into a bottleneck of mud and trees. Even when other tribal leaders warned Varus of the betrayal, the Roman general dismissed them. He couldn't conceive that a man he considered civilized would choose his blood over the eagles of Rome. Look at the maps of the Roman expansion. It took centuries to build this momentum, yet it would all be halted by a single man's refusal to see the truth. If you were in Varus's position, would you have trusted the man who spoke your language or the barbarian warning you of a trap? Let me know in the comments. Is loyalty to a system more dangerous than the enemy in front of you? Now, let's see how that misplaced trust turned into a nightmare. As the rain began to pour, the Roman formation, usually a tight, impenetrable wall of shields, was forced to stretch. The line of march became a thin, fragile thread winding through miles of narrow trails. This was the moment the strategic blunder unraveled into a massacre. The geography of the forest acted as a vice. On one side, steep hills, on the other, treacherous marshes. The Romans were trapped in a corridor of their own making. Suddenly, the forest itself seemed to scream. Thousands of Germanic warriors who had spent years being humiliated by Roman taxes fell upon the thin line. The Roman soldiers couldn't deploy their spears. They couldn't find the space to swing their swords. Their heavy shields, soaked by the relentless rain, became useless weights. For 3 days, the massacre continued. It wasn't a battle, it was a slow-motion execution. Varus, seeing the ruin he had invited, committed suicide, falling on his own sword rather than facing the emperor. Without command, the legions crumbled. The professional soldiers of Rome were slaughtered in the mud, their golden eagles, the very soul of their units, captured and paraded by the tribes. This was a decisive defeat in every sense of the word. Rome didn't just lose soldiers, it lost the will to expand. When the news reached Emperor Augustus, he reportedly wandered his palace for months, hitting his head against the walls and screaming, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions!" Teutoburg Forest remains a brutal reminder of the human failure aspect of history. Rome possessed the best technology, the best training, and the most money, but all of it was neutralized by a commander who refused to respect his environment and his enemy. The Rhine River became a permanent border, a scar on the map that would eventually define the divide between the Latin and Germanic worlds. In the end, it wasn't the spears of the tribes that defeated Rome. It was the strategic arrogance of a man who believed that his map was more real than the forest in front of him. A single moment of hesitation, a single blunder in judgment, and the frontier of an empire was lost forever.